Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. So in CookieCast, it's the football podcast, and I don't know if it might be something I'm doing or I don't know what, but we cannot seem to keep a full roster at the moment. If one of them's not here, then the other one's not here. I tell you something. Is it me? It's probably me. Yes, our beloved Stuart Woodmansey is not here this week, but we gain Matthew Moore back. It's like a cultural exchange, maybe. We've got all the games from last week to go through, the games from this week to go through. That's a lot of games to go through. Everything in between, ins and outs. There's a lot of ins and outs this week. So, yeah. Before we start, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Obviously, the big one is share the podcast around. If you've got a football fan in your life, send them this podcast. They will love it. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast, the football podcast.
Indeed. Welcome on in, ladies and gentlemen, to another weekly update of your football nonsense from us here at the CookieCast Podcast Network. For those of you joining us on YouTube, you'll notice only three faces staring back at you once again this week. Mr. Woodmansey on his jollies, so to speak. So sadly, won't be able to join us this week. But back from his jollies, Mr. Matthew Moore. How's it going, sir? How was your rest and recuperation?
Perhaps wouldn't call it that, but yes. It's very nice. Nice to get some.
I was going to say you had a nice time. Exactly. A little bit of vitamin C and all the burgers you could eat or something like that. Who knows? So, we come at you with another week of football updates from Borough, Hull and Nottingham Forest, and we'll jump right in with some transfer activity. And even though he's not here, I've done his team's stuff for him. So, Hull, I believe he'd said on the podcast a couple of weeks ago that the chairman had said, was it upwards of 10 signings that he wanted to make between now and the closing of the transfer window? Something like that. Well, he's kind of man of his word, as they've got 3 through the door since last week's recording. They've signed centre-back Charlie Hughes, signed from Wigan Athletic for an undisclosed fee. I think he's quite a young player. He's only in his early 20s, so definitely one for the future, but with an eye that he might be able to start playing straight away. So forward player Mason Burstow has signed on a permanent deal from Chelsea. He was on loan at Sunderland last season. Not a prolific goal scorer, but again, only a young lad. So plenty of potential there. You'd imagine we'll probably go straight into the squad. I believe he played their game at the weekend against Plymouth. Came on somewhere halfway through the game. Also, a game in the last half an hour. So wouldn't be surprised to see him in from the start potentially this coming week. And the third and final signing they made was a defensive midfielder, Oscar Zambrano, was signed from Ecuadorian team LDU Quito on a season-long loan with an option to purchase at the end. The website didn't really give much detail about Zambrano, but like I say, he was a defensive midfielder, so should slot into that position just in front of the back four, shore up that sort of area. And make him a little bit more hard to break down. From a Nottingham Forest perspective, I don't know if you agree with this, Matt. I've got a 1-in, 1-out scenario going on. Is that correct?
Yeah, that sounds about right. In came around that it's been quite a long. You could call it a saga if you wish. Ramon Sousa from Talleres, or from the Argentinian league, I mean, it's been going on for a while. Forest have kind of targeted him. It looked like it was all set to come, it was all set to go, and then it kind of started to look like it was unraveling. But listening to a Forest podcast that I also listened to, apparently it had something to do with three. It's kind of like that Carlos Tevez Mascherano kind of situation all those years back. The Argentinian team earned so much of him, or as a player. His previous team owned so much of him as a contract as well, and him personally owned so much. So when Forest bought him, so much went to his team in Argentina, so much went to him, and so much went to his previous club in Paraguay. So he has to make his move happen. The quabble was a little bit with Forest, with how much Forest were going to pay with add-ons, but also what was going to happen to his share. And he's kindly donated it back to the team in Argentina, quote unquote, from the club in Argentina. So yeah, Ramon Sousa, winger. I don't know anything about him. From some of the things that I've read or listened to, good with either foot, pacey, likes a shot, cannot sometimes go into that kind of number 10 kind of position as well, number 9, number 10 position. Has been played up front by his previous club. Going out, Omar Richards. Yeah, I mean, that he was, obviously one of the 20 odd, nearly 30 that came in that first season. Turned up with a broken leg and then's never managed to crack into the team. Scored in pre-season, but just obviously nobody in the club. I presume nobody in the club that remains at the club now fancies him as a player, so will be loaned out to various sibling clubs of the Forest orbit or the Olympiacos orbit. Obviously done 2 seasons at Olympiacos, is now at Rio Ave, which is also another Marinakis club. No doubt.
I did wonder if they were in the family, so to speak.
Yeah, considering we've had 3 go, so obviously Aguilera, Brandon, the guy who was at Bristol Rovers last year, he's gone on a permanent deal, and then Panzo and Richards are both there on loan for the season.
We'll see. I would imagine Mr. Richards may be packing his bags on a permanent basis in the summer. So there we go. 1 in, 1 out at Forest. Just the 1 in for Middlesbrough, and it's one that's been on the cards for a couple of weeks at least. Striker Tommy Conway has signed from Andy's team, Bristol City, on a permanent basis. The fee's classed as undisclosed, but is believed to be in the region of about £4.5 million. The club thinks they've got an absolute cracking deal there. Even if it is £4.5 million for a guy who's never played higher than the Championship. It was into the last year of his contract at Bristol City, and I think the club think they've got him for about half of what his current value is. So it's definitely It's definitely a signing for the current, with potentially the eye for, if they don't get promoted, maybe one that could move on in the summer for a hefty increased fee. He's a Scotland international. Several caps for Scotland. Did he go to the Euros? I don't know if he was maybe injured or picked up an injury late on towards the end of the season, but he might have been in the Euros squad. I've not actually looked into that yet. But did fairly okay at Bristol City. I think he got 10 goals last season. So go into the squad to go alongside Latte Lat as the main striking option, but can also play behind the forward in the number 10. So it just gives him another option in that sort of forward area. And given how the weekend's results went, I think they might need a little bit of striking reinforcements. So we'll jump straight in to the predictions. And we started with Derby County versus Middlesbrough. Now, on paper, this one, I would imagine, would have been in a lot of people's coupons as an easy, comfortable away win. On paper, obviously, Derby just coming back up into the Championship. Borough as one of the favourites to be promoted. Didn't really, and if you look at the stats, it kind of panned out that way. Total shots, Derby as the home side, 3, of which 2 were on target. As the away side, Middlesbrough, total shots, 20, of which 4 were on target. Not ideal. Borough started as much the better team. Obviously, took the game straight to Derby, put them on the back foot. They were in the ascendancy up until about the 14th minute when Borough had a corner from the right-hand side. It was cleared out to the edge of the box. The ball made its way back to Isaiah Jones on the centre circle, and he attempted a back pass to the goalkeeper, but only put about 10 yards on the pass, which was a little silly considering that Senny Dieng was still in his box. So yeah, left that a little bit short. Caden Jackson was on his bike, latched onto the what would have been classed as a cracking through ball if it had been played by one of his own team. But he latched onto it. Didn't really have anyone closing him down. Hayden Hackney did his best to try and get back in, but he rounded the goalkeeper and just rolled the ball in from about 5 yards out to make it 1-0 to Derby on the 14th minute. And from there, Derby basically just went into shithouse, ruin the game, sit behind the ball, and just try and grind out the result mode. And sadly, it worked. Borough did have the ball in the net in the second half. Around the 70th minute, Delano Bergzorg from a Hayden Hackney ball into the box. Sadly, he had strayed offside by a good yard or 2. So that one was correctly chalked off. He also hit the post in about the 85th minute. But sadly, Borough couldn't break down the Derby rearguard action and were succumbed to a 1-0 defeat, sadly. Podcast predictions-wise, everyone had a Middlesbrough win. And the 2 people that did have goals for Derby had both gone for Mendes Lang as their goal scorers. So no points across the board there. Were not a great start. Our second game of the week saw a first outing for Nottingham Forest this season. How did this one pan out against Bournemouth? Did you actually see this, or were you back in the country at the time, or were you still away?
I was still away. Wasn't on any of the tellies. It was, I think, I looked around, and it was Arsenal Wolves, Newcastle Southampton, and another one.
Everton,
Everton Brighton. Yeah. Which was quite funny. That was quite funny seeing them get smashed. But so yeah, kind of keeping up to date with it, like on reports and stuff like that. So yeah, obviously started with new season, starting with hope and all that kind of thing. And yeah, within 6 minutes, 8 minutes, really innocuous. I've watched it. Finally got round to watching it today because I was just like, I can't. Luckily, match of the day, didn't focus too much on it. Because in the past, I think they have kind of shown it a bit too much sometimes.
I think it's one of those ones that they tend to sort of look at it, and if it's not too gruesome, they will show it. But if it's a little bit too nasty, they won't show it.
They're kind of slowly editing it out. They've gone a bit like WWE PG era kind of thing. Yeah. Really innocuous. I genuinely don't know how he's done it. The only thing is that the Bournemouth guy seemed to go to ground as they went for the header, and he's either gone under his leg, or is like the Bournemouth guy just didn't. I don't know. In the process of the header, I don't want to seem like I'm calling somebody out, but I'm gonna. I think there's a lot of things nowadays when people go up for headers, they throw themselves to the ground a little bit to see if they can nab a free kick. And I think the Bournemouth guy's done that. Either he's overbalanced or what, but he somehow ended up on the floor and then was in Danilo's landing space. And I can't quite work out whether Danilo landed on his foot and went over, or his leg got stuck under, or his ankle got stuck under his leg. Either way, broken ankle. Reports are somewhere between a Brazilian guy, newspaper reporter said 6 to 8 weeks, which seems really quick. Paul Taylor in The Athletic reported 12 weeks. I would err on that side of things. I don't think we'll see him before the new year, realistically, because you just got to make sure that there's no point in. I was listening to Darren Fletcher talk the other day, and he's like, "Oh, the squad hasn't moved on." I think the squad is deep enough to cope with Danilo's injury. I think we've got enough players. I don't think they need to go and buy anybody. I don't think they need to rush him back either. I think there's enough players within the squad to kind of think. That being said, luckily Forest didn't back down and took the lead. Kind of 30 minutes in, something like that. Chris Wood. So Ryan Yates, who came on, which at the time I had a little pull of the face and muttered about it because I don't think it's the most positive, forward-thinking kind of substitution. But apparently, like big run from Yates, he through the midfield, passed it, bit of pinballing. He took a shot, keeper couldn't hold on to it, and Chris Wood tucked it in the back of the net, 1-0. But unfortunately, Forest's frailties kind of showed themselves again, and watching the highlights, they were already on their 6-yard box. Hopefully, Milenkovic, who was banned because he got sent off in the Italian Cup final last year, will be back this weekend. Whereas with Willy Bolly, they have to kind of drop a little bit back because there's faster there's faster tractors than Willy Bolly. So bit of pinball in the Forest box. Toffolo, in a bid to clear it, smashed it into Murillo's face. It dropped to Semenya, who stuck it in the back of the net to get a 1-1 draw for Bournemouth. Another dropped 2 points for Forest, I feel. And just a little kind of quiz thing. Anybody know how many points Forest have dropped from winning positions in their two seasons and one game?
Let's go for 45.
Oh, really close. 50. They've got 50 points from winning positions in the past 2 seasons and a game, which, even if you took half of that and spread it over the 2 seasons, you'd be like, all right, that's more comfort for both seasons.
I suppose if you did want to put a positive spin on that, you could say at least they're taking the lead in games.
Yeah. It's the same old thing as like what we talked about last year and the year before that, is when you're 1-0 up, you're not safe. And sometimes Forest just don't put the old foot on the throat and just really kind of get that second goal to really kind of hammer it home. As opposed to, all right, we've got 1-0. And, and you can see it. You can see it at like the substitutions around 60 minutes. It's always negative. It's never, let's go make sure we win this properly. It's let's defend the lead. And you're going to get pushed further and further back into your own box. And Forest can't deal with that. They need, hopefully new defenders will help shore that up. But I feel, unfortunately, Harry Toffolo's last contribution in a Forest shirt might be smashing it into Murillo's face for like a hockey assist. for their Bournemouth goal?
Not ideal. Not ideal. From a predictions perspective, it definitely wasn't ideal for me, as I had a 1-0 Nottingham Forest win with Hudson-Odoi to score the goal. So no points for me through 2 games so far. Andy had also gone for a win. He'd gone for 2-0 with a Hudson-Odoi and a Wood goal. So does get a bonus point for the goal score there. Matt had gone for a 2-2 draw, so does get a point for the result. Sadly, didn't have either of the goal scorers. Had Hudson-Odoi and Gibbs-White, Christie and Inal for Bournemouth. Stu had gone for a 1-1 draw, so he gets himself 2 points for the result. Sadly, neither Hudson-Odoi nor Billing scored goals, so he just sticks with the 2 points for the result there. And we finished the week with Stu's boys Hull travelling all the way down to Plymouth to take on Wayne Rooney's Plymouth Argyle. Now, sadly, I haven't seen the Plymouth goal, so that tells you there was at least one Plymouth goal. But I have seen the Hull City goal, which was scored by right back Louis Coyle after Stu mercilessly or unmercilessly ragged on him for being ancient last week and saying that he was well past it, and if they'd have got promoted to the Premier League, he'd be nowhere near the team. And it turns out he's 28 or something like that. He's not even that old, and Stu's putting him out to pasture.
You can't beat 40-year-old men deciding that you passed it.
Absolutely textbook. And let's put it this way: he certainly didn't look like an old man when he picked the ball up in the right back slot, ran past pretty much the entirety of the Plymouth team, played a 1-2, and then bent it in the top right corner with his left peg. Yes, please, let's have some of that. So Louis Coyle got the Hull City goal. The Plymouth goal was scored by Ibrahima Sissoko, and I can only hope that his name was spelt correctly by the kit man who did his kit this week, where he actually includes the C on the back of his shirt name, as opposed to just calling him Isoko the week before against Sheffield Wednesday. So the game finished 1 apiece. Plymouth 1, Hull 1. Hull continue their unbeaten start to the season. 2 draws. Obviously, they lost in the cup against Sheffield Wednesday, but in the league, they are unbeaten. Predictions-wise in the podcast, both myself and Andy had 1-0 Hull wins. I had Omer to score. Andy had Estepinian to score. 0 points apiece. Matt had a 2-1 Hull win. Whittaker to score for Plymouth. Estepinian and Omer to score for Hull. Sadly, no points for him. But Mr. Woodmansey's done it again, ladies and gentlemen. He had a 1-1 draw. Sadly, didn't pick either of the goal scorers with Whittaker and Omer as his goal scorers. So he does get 2 points for the correct result, which means that winning the week with a whopping 4 points from the 3 games available is Mr. Stuart Woodmansey. Matt and Andy got a point each. I had 0 points to show for this week's predictions. You can't win them all, though, ladies and gentlemen. So, week 2, done and dusted. We'll dive straight in with week 3's predictions, which start with Mr. Stuart Woodmansey's Hull City in one of the early kickoffs, taking on Millwall. This, of course, will be on the brand new Sky Sports Plus channel. Obviously, I have Mr. Woodmansey's predictions written down in the book, so I will give my prediction, but I will leave his prediction till last. I've gone for a 2-2 draw here. Millwall have lost both of their games, but they have scored a shit ton of goals in the process. I don't know if they've lost both of their games 4-3, but they certainly lost last time out against Bristol City 4-3, and they may have lost 3-2 on the opening week of the season. So there's plenty of goals in their team. Sadly, they can't keep a clean sheet to save their lives. So I've gone for 2-2. I've gone for a goal for Omer and the new signing Burstow to get off the mark for Hull. And then I've gone for sort of the old boy rule and an old boy adjacent rule. Gone for a goal apiece for Honeyman and Watmore. Andy, what have you got down for Hull versus Millwall?
Simple, clean.
elegant 1-0 Hull win. I'm going
And
to
your
roll
goal
him
scorer,
out.
please.
I'm going to roll him out again as soon as he hasn't had a goal. Estepinian.
Obviously, got off the mark on the opening day of the season, but sadly, no goals since then. Matt, what have you got down for Hull versus Millwall?
I've gone for a 2-1 Hull win.
Nice. I like it. Goal scorers?
Miller and Umu.
Yes.
Hull and
Yep.
old boy rule for Millwall, Honeyman.
Honey man. Lovely stuff. Mr. Woodmansey thinks it will be a draw. He's gone for 1-1. He has also gone for a debut goal for Mr. Burstow. And Tom Bradshaw scored for Millwall. Our second game of the week takes us down to the south coast, where Southampton will take on Matt's team, Nottingham Forest. Stu has gone for a 1-0 away win. A Morgan Gibbs-White strike to get the job done. Andy, what have you got for Southampton versus Forest?
Again, clean, elegant and simple. A 0-1 with everyone's favourite Simpson character scoring, Hudson Odoi.
Lovely, a jubbly. I am in agreement with these two. I have also got an away win. I've gone for 1-2. Got Adam Armstrong to score for Southampton. And then I've got a goal apiece for Hudson Odoi and I've got Wood. Lovely stuff. Matt, how do you see it going against the Saints?
I've gone it not quite as optimistic as you guys because it's the good old, they're back in the Premier League. They'll be making a big deal of it. Apparently they were decent against Newcastle. I know against 10 men. The goal that they conceded was shocking though. Like, I think if they're going to play out from the back like that, there's a strong chance that at some points that there's going to be several times when they get an absolute pasting, a la Burnley from last year. I just don't think Forest are quite there at the moment. We'll see. I've gone for a 2-2 draw.
Okay.
Everybody forgot old boy rules. Old Ben Brereton Diaz. Ready to throw himself to the floor again. That was absolutely shocking as well.
Not good, was it?
And of course, to match your Wood, I've got a small bone.
And he's not even ashamed to admit that on the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah,
well, then also for Forest, I do have Wood, and hopefully, I love it. I love it when kind of obviously players from other countries talk about having good sensations and stuff like that. So I'm hoping that Awonyi will have his good sensation from playing at Southampton again when he scored against Southampton 2 seasons ago. That kind of really set him on that run of goal scoring. So I've got Awonyi to score at St Mary's. I was about to call it the Dell.
Oh yes, it's not been that for a good 20 years.
Yeah.
Our third game of the week sees my lot, Middlesbrough, taking on newly promoted Portsmouth at the Riverside. Stu has gone for a 1-0 Middlesbrough win with a Emmanuel Latte-Lat goal. Matt, your prediction, please.
I've gone for a 2-1 Borough win.
Okay.
With both the strikers getting on there, Latte-Lat and Conway. But I've got Lang for Portsmouth because they do seem to score goals.
They do. Obviously, they do come off the back of a 0-0 with Luton, but that might have something to do with the fact that the Luton goalkeeper tried to garrote at least one of the Portsmouth players in the 2 that he took out in one fell swoop. After he was on a yellow card, so he basically got a second yellow. Arguably could have been 2 straight reds.
I think as something I was listening to the other day, they were like, oh yeah, the referee just couldn't be bothered with the admin. So just went, yeah, 2 yellows. We'll call it that.
Mate, you have made this the easiest decision I'll ever have to do. There's your second yellow. There's your red. Off you go. Andy, what have you got down for Borough Portsmouth?
2-0.
I like this guy. Keeps it simple.
In keeping with the theme, I've got Latte Laugh. And what is becoming one of my quick favourites for the podcast, Bergzorg. And I will continue to say it like that from now until who knows when.
I like it. Obviously, it's not, but I keep thinking of Emperor Zurg from, what is it? Toy Story in my head.
It's really weird. A long-winded version of it is that there's a second Tarzan movie that some of my children enjoy watching, and one of the characters in it is called Zugor, and that's all I can think. And that's how it's said as well. It's Zugor. So that's the connection.
I'm not as optimistic as you three. I think we'll struggle against the promoted team. I don't know why. I've got a bit of a bad feeling about this one. So I've got us down for a 1-1 draw. I agree with Matt in that I've got Lang as my Portsmouth goal scorer, and I agree with Andy in that I've got Bergzorg as my Borough goal scorer. So 1-1. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully they do get the 3 points, but wouldn't be surprised if they don't. There's also 2 cup fixtures in the offing for next week. The first of which sees my team Middlesbrough taking on Stoke City. Now this one has been agreed as a 7:15 p.m. kickoff as opposed to 7:45 or even 8 p.m. as apparently a means of getting more kids to the game. Interesting. Matt, what have you got down for Middlesbrough versus Stoke?
I've gone for a Borough 2-1 win.
Goal scorers?
Coburn and McCormick.
Ooh, he's picked a kid from the academy. A young left back, I like it.
I saw him, I think he was on the bench, and I thought, he'll probably get a run out in the cup, so give him a crack.
Maybe.
And then Kumas, because I was like, it's probably related to Jason Kumas.
I believe it is his son, and I think he's signed on loan from Liverpool.
There you go then. Oh, yeah. I remember, all of them were in that was it the League Cup final? That was
yeah, I think that sounds somewhat right. Andy?
Again, a 2-0 Borough win. I've got Latte Laugh again. But I thought I would also try a new player combination. So I've got Micah Hamilton.
Oh, lovely stuff. This is, of course, the youngster who signed permanently from Manchester City in a similar move to Morgan Rogers last summer. Will he still be there in 6 months? Who can tell? Stuart's gone for a 2-1 Borough win. He's got goals for Coburn and Barlasser, and then a Gooch, apparently. I'm in agreement with you lot. I've gone for a 2-0 win. I've gone for a first goal in Borough colours for Tommy Conway, and also a first in Borough colours for American Aidan Morris in the centre of the park. Very impressive himself. He looked very good. Normally, some of the American ones who come across look a little bit slow when it comes to the pace of the league. He has not. And our final game of the week, also in the League Cup, sees Nottingham Forest taking on Newcastle United. Almost the Matt Moore derby, as it were. Obviously, he will give his prediction last. Stu's gone for a 1-1 draw here, but for Nottingham Forest to progress on penalties. Obviously, League Cup games, no extra time. If it's a draw at the end of 90 minutes, goes straight to penalties. He's got a goal for Wood, Old Boy Rule, and Isak to score for Newcastle. I'm not as optimistic as Mr. Woodmansey. Unfortunately, I've got a 2-1 Newcastle win, sadly. I have also enveloped the Old Boy Rule, and I've got for Anderson to score for Forest, but I've got goals apiece for Barnes and Almiron for Newcastle. Andy?
Forest to win 2-0.
No.
I'm going to, obviously, as I've not done it yet, I'm going to have to get my wood out.
Obviously.
And go with a little Gibbs White action.
It's a solid pick. Solid pick. How do you see it panning out, Mr. Moore?
I have agreed with somebody currently on the podcast. No. I've agreed with you, Mr. Williams. I've gone for a Newcastle 2-1 win. We know how desperate they are to fill their sad little, those IKEA one box cupboard of a trophy cabinet, because there's nothing in there, so they only need one to put something in. But I know they're desperate to win a trophy. They'll give it full beans for everything. I don't dare say the Forest owner would like Forest to do the same. I'm hoping that they're quite a little bit less gung-ho at the moment. If they sign a striker in the next 24 hours, which I suspect they will, then maybe a stronger team will be put out. But I've gone for a 2-1 Newcastle win with Wood scoring for Forest. I was umming and ahhing between him and Elliot Anderson. They were my two. I've gone Joe Linton to score because, players that we hate generally score against our teams.
Shit out.
And no doubt he will have put a little bit of cash on himself, being as he can play in this game. I've gone for Sandro Tonali to score, because apparently this is the first game that he can play since his ban. So I fully expect him to play, and I fully expect him to score, and no doubt he has a bit of cash on himself to be the first goal scorer.
Let's be honest, it would be very much in keeping with his shady past, shall we say.
Or if he gets booked, or get some money on him getting a booking in the first 5 minutes, because no doubt he's got some cash on that.
Exactly. And obviously he'll be deeply, deeply rusty from his 8-month layoff. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That brings us to the end of another week in the podcasting football world. A thank you, as always, to Messrs. Cook and Moore for joining me to take you through the details of our collective teams in the EFL and Premier League. Obviously, if you're new here, click on, go to the CookieCast, maybe give us a little subscribe, share with your friends, tell them all about us. Obviously, not just a football podcast there, you've got F1, wrestling. If you dive into the archives, there's beer involved on there, and a little bit of bullshit every now and again. There's also the Darkest Timeline podcast that Mr. Cook offers by himself, which is a very nice listen each week. So, like, share, subscribe. We'll be back in a week's time to go through all of those games we just predicted there, bring you any more transfers, ins and outs that have happened at our club. But until then, take care of yourselves, look after each other, and we'll see you in a week's time. Tatty bye for now.
So there we go. What do you think to that? Another week of games gone, another week of games to look forward to. Big thank you for watching, big thank you for listening, big thank you for being here. Before you go, do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review, and check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There we've got social media links and an email button, and that way you can get in touch with us. That is it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to these grumpy old men talk about football. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like, share and subscribe.